So, just this week, we see that the Hunter Biden laptop actually ended up being real, despite former intel agents, the mainstream media, social media, etc., either censoring or lying about the story and saying it wasn't real. Now we have the same media that told us that, admitting, oh, geez, it looks like the lab leak theory was actually real and it looks like it did come from a Wuhan lab. Am I the only one who's sick and tired of these institutions calling us conspiracy theorists, calling for us to be censored, demonizing us? Only for 4 years later to be found out, oops, they were right all along. Now, don't get it twisted. This isn't a mea culpa. They're not going to change. They're not going to all of a sudden say, geez, why are we so wrong so often? Maybe we need to look into what we're doing. Maybe we need to stop demonizing these other people that disagree with us because it turns out oftentimes they're right. This is their MO. They downplay things, they censor it, they call you crazy when it matters. Had we known that it was a lab leak years ago, then maybe we'd have had significant questions about how we approach China, how we approach the virus itself. But no, instead, we even had when Joe Biden came in, one of the first things he decided to do was stop Trump's task force that was looking into whether or not this virus came from a lab in China. We could have held people like Fauci accountable, who at the NIH was funding the Wuhan lab. But no, instead we listened to Fauci and we listened to Peter Daszak, the person he was funding that was responsible for all of the gain of function that was going on in that lab. With the Russia disinformation that we were told the laptop was, it was interference in the election. They're literally jailing Donald Trump or attempting to jail him, just convict him of a felony because he interfered in the election because, as the prosecutor said, it could have changed the results of the election. They're implying the American people had the right to know about Trump's sex life, and because they didn't, my goodness, that interfered with the election. Meanwhile, an actual story on about Hunter Biden's laptop that showed wrongdoing of the Biden family selling access to Joe Biden, the big guy getting 10%, and this was to hostile foreign institutions and companies, including one of which, Burisma, that Hunter Biden was on the board of directors at, that Joe Biden, when vice president, forced the firing of a prosecutor that was looking into it. If that's not an example of election misinformation and election interference, I don't know what is. And it was promulgated by almost the entirety of our media, the entirety of the Democratic Party, Joe Biden himself, and the intel agents and 50 something former intel agents. The Democrats always, always, always accuse you of what they're doing. They'll lie to you, they'll gaslight you, they'll tell you you're crazy. And then 4 or 5 years later, when it doesn't matter, they'll say, oh yeah, sorry, turns out we were wrong. That wasn't a hoax. You're right after all. But anyways, what you're saying today is wrong.